مرزا ناصر نے 200 صفحے کی تقریباً کتاب اپنے بیان کو کتاب کی صورت میں چھاپا. وہاں آئے اور اسمبلی ہال میں اپنا 200 صفحے کا بیان مکمل طور پر پڑھ کر سنایا، جس میں ان کا پورا موقف موجود تھا. ہم نے بڑے غور سے سنا، اطمینان سے، صبر سے. اس کے بعد یہ درست ہے کہ ہمیں بھی تشویش لاحق ہوئی کہ اس کی تقریر کے بعد ممبروں پر کچھ اثر تھا. اور میں نے پہلے بھی آپ کو سنایا تھا کہ جب وہ آئے تھے تو داڑھی سفید لمبی، جا کر دیکھ لو، سفید سفید پگڑی، پگڑ اور قمیص سلوار. اس صورت میں جب وہ اسمبلی کے اندر پہلی مرتبہ داخل ہوئے اور ممبروں نے دیکھا، اور ممبروں کی اکثریت اس سے پہلے نہیں دیکھا تھا، اور میں بھی انہیں میں شامل تھا، تو ہمیں گھور گھور کر کہنے لگے کہ دیکھو یہ داڑھی سفید اور تم کہتے ہو کافر ہے، یہ پگڑی اور تم کہا یہ شکل کافر کی ہے. مولوی صاحبان تم بھی عجیب باتیں کرتے ہو، یہ کافر کی شکل ہو سکتی ہے؟ یہ ذہن تھا. اگر آپ بھائی ایمان کا تعلق، اسلام کا تعلق شکل داڑھی سے نہیں، عقیدے سے. غرض یہ جب وہ اپنے بیان میں جناب نبی کریم علیہ الصلوۃ والسلام کا اس میں گرامی ذکر کرتے تھے تو درود بھی ساتھ پڑھتے تھے. جب وہ درود پڑھتا تھا تو اس طرح ممبر میں کہتے دیکھو حضور پر درود بھیج رہا ہے، تم کہتے کافر. کبھی کبھی وہ قرآن کریم کی آیتیں بھی اس بیان میں پڑھتا تھا تو ممبر کہتے کہ دیکھو قرآن کی آیتیں پڑھ رہا ہے، تم کہتے ہو کہ یہ کافر. تو ذہن اس طرح بنا. تشویش اس لیے تھی کہ یہ ایک آخری وقت ہے، موقع ہے. اگر اس وقت اسمبلی نے جب مسئلہ پیش ہے سامنے انہیں غیر مسلم قرار نہ دیا اور مسلمان قرار دے دیا خدا نخواستہ، تو پھر یہ مسئلہ الجھ گیا عمر بھر.
Assalamu alaikum and welcome to the 6th episode in our series 1974 From Democracy to Extremism. In today's show, we'll try to conclude our analysis of the actual content of those secret proceedings of the National Assembly of Pakistan. The world has moved on a great deal ever since we know it. In this series, we have been trying to highlight all those areas of discussion that may be of interest to the audience in the contemporary world. Otherwise, every page of these proceedings is worth exploring. There is so much that could be said and would be said about over 3,000 page long document of proceedings, and certainly we've tried our level best to cover as much as we can. A significant portion of these proceedings was about jihad, and that is one of the most contemporary topics which has become more and more relevant through all these decades, basically 4 decades ever since. Today we begin with the misconstrued concept of jihad held by the Attorney General and other members of the 1974 Parliament, which mirrors the beliefs of the current day religious extremists.
Ab chhod do, ab chhod do, jihad ka اے دوستو خیال دین کے لیے حرام ہے اب جنگ اور قتال اب جنگ اور قتال
The resolution presented by the opposition also stated that the Ahmadis are enemies of Islam and a subversive movement raised by the British to remove the belief of jihad from the hearts of the Indian Muslims. Even the elders of all major sects of Islam in India, who were contemporaries of Promised Messiah ﷺ, had forbidden rebellion against the British rule. Hazrat Mirza Nasir Ahmad, may Allah be pleased with him, while responding to the Attorney General's questions, quoted some of these edicts to expose the double standards and hypocrisy of the Parliament. Sayyid Ahmad Shaheed of Bareilly, the renowned Imam and leader of the Sunni sect, had said, "The British government, although a disbeliever in Islam, does not treat the Muslims with any cruelty or high-handedness, nor does it prevent them from attending to their religious obligations or observing the obligatory acts of worship. So why should we wage a jihad against the British government and, contrary to the principles of our faith, needlessly shed blood on either side?" Maulvi Nazir Ahmad Dehlvi, the leader of Ahl Hadith sect in India, stated, "Since the condition precedent to jihad is extinct in this land, therefore embarking upon jihad here would be suicidal and sinful." Maulvi Zafar Ali Khan, editor of Zamindar, Lahore, said, "If a wicked Muslim has the audacity to rebel against the government, even in the presence of religious freedom and peace, then I declare it aloud that he is not a Muslim." There are dozens of such examples, including fatwas issued from Makkah and a joint fatwa issued by all major ulama of India in the support of British rule, cited in the Mahzarnama. But all these proofs were ignored, and the allegation of denial of jihad was raised by the Attorney General.
They were being very sinister in terms of quoting only a couple of 4 verses of Prophet Muhammad from a nazm, a poem about jihad, and stopping or halting jihad, the instruction, and that they actually missed out the 2 couplets, intentionally.
Yes, I think I've got that section in my hand now. So the discussion stems from why do Ahmadis deny jihad, which is a false allegation. Again, we do not deny jihad. We actually believe in all aspects of jihad, in how it was told to us by the Holy Prophet ﷺ. So the prophecy which relates to the coming of the promised Messiah said that he will put down the war, or that's how it's been translated from Arabic, meaning that at his time there won't be any wars, and there won't be any need of religious wars or war to win religious freedom, because humanity would have evolved by then to understand that people need their religious freedom to live in peace. So then he quotes that couplets that you mentioned, "Ab chhod do jihad ka dosto khayal." I think you can read it here.
Yes,
that
of course.
section.
I mean, these following couplets again mention very clearly, why do you forget this Yazal Harb, halting the war with sword, instruction by the Holy Prophet ﷺ. I mean, he's already given instruction, and these 2 couplets mention the Holy Prophet twice. So they were obviously and intentionally dropping those verses out, couplets out, so that people are misguided.
And the funny thing again is that after hearing the response, when it came to the concluding speeches and remarks by the members and by the Attorney General, they again forgot to mention the response, which was given that it is not us saying that, but it is the founder of Islam, the Holy Prophet ﷺ, who was actually given this glad tidings that at the time of the Messiah there won't be any need for wars for the sake of faith.
फरमा चुका है सैयदे कौनैन मुस्तफा ईसा मसीह जंगों का कर देगा इल्तिवा जब आएगा.
Same allegations were repeated by almost all of the speakers during the last few days of the proceedings. Mufti Mahmud stated, "Jihad is a religious obligation in Islam, and the survival of Islam and Muslims depends upon it. Sharia has made it a reason for the protection of Islam and Ummah and the mission of Islam until the end of days. This means that the Mufti and his followers had no faith in the message of Islam and its beauty, which requires no weapons to attract the righteous souls from all corners of the earth. It was during the government of Mufti Mahmud's party in the northwest frontier province of Pakistan that the religious seminaries were strengthened by official recognition and state funding. It was the same Mufti and his colleagues who recruited countless youth to fight in Soviet-Afghan conflict in the name of jihad. The same jihadis later gave birth to Al-Qaeda and Taliban. We can rightly call these ulamas father of the Taliban. Maulana Abdul Hakim said in his speech, "When Jesus will descend, all non-Muslims will be overcome and those who remain will convert to Islam. That is why all wars will end during his time." He also said, Muslims can attack a country even if they feel threatened by it. Even if Muslims have signed a peace treaty with a non-Muslim nation, but they feel it is damaging them and they feel threatened, they should cancel the treaty and prepare for war. The Attorney General himself seemed to be in agreement with these Maulvis. He asked Hazrat Mirza Nasir Ahmed, "I'm surprised that even this is a part of Islam, that obedience to the British government is mandatory." We can only pity the myopia and small-mindedness behind these statements. Quran enjoins the Muslims to obey the ulil amr, those in authority from among you, and forbids all kinds of rebellion and mischief. The fact is that the Promised Messiah ﷺ had warned the Muslim world more than a century ago about the dangers and pitfalls of the false notions of violent jihad. He said, "Let me tell you explicitly that if, under these circumstances, anyone were to misuse the name of Islam to retaliate with militancy, then such a person will only bring disgrace to the fair name of Islam. Because Islam never intended to allow that swords be drawn for no reason and without just cause. The objectives of modern warfare after its professional development have changed from being religious to being materialistic. How unjust it would be to draw a sword against the objector instead of replying to his objections. The method of combat have changed along with the change in the spirit of the time. So, first of all, you need to use your head and your heart and purify your souls. Seek help and victory from God the Exalted, beseeching Him with truth and righteousness, for this is the immutable law and an established principle of God. And if the Muslims have hopes of courting victory by mere vainglorious boasting, then it would be impossible." Pakistan stands at a critical juncture of history. Violent jihadi forces have overrun its towns and cities, and countless innocent lives have been lost due to this menace. Is there anyone who can identify where the rot had actually begun?
Now we're once again joined by a senior lawyer from Pakistan, Mr. Mujibur Rahman, who has pleaded a number of cases for the minorities in Pakistani courts. Assalamu alaikum, Mr. Rahman.
Wa alaikum assalam.
We've just watched the VT of jihad, and doesn't that seem like that over these years now, especially in the last few decades, most of the Muslims have come back to the same old principles Islam has set out with regards to jihad, and it seems such a different idea that jihad now is defensive. Of course, in line with Prophet Muhammad and the third Khalifa's views in that parliament proceedings.
Thank you, Mahmood, very much for that question, for allowing me to put in my bit of observation on this. The world at large has seen that Promised Messiah, when he was propounding the true concept of jihad, according to Quran and Sunnah, all these clerics, they strongly opposed him and they resisted that interpretation, and over the last 100 years they have been doing that. But the intelligentsia in in Pakistan and other countries accepted that original concept of jihad given by Quran and Sunnah. What Yahya Bakhtiar was doing, and I have been saying it again and again during my discussions with my friends, that Yahya Bakhtiar was projecting a particular lobbyist point of view. Yahya Bakhtiar, today we see he was projecting the Taliban's point of view. And what he projected and what he gave sanctity under the law led to this extremism, as we have said, from democracy to extremism. He was consciously doing that to provoke that concept of jihad, which no intelligent man would accept. Now, having been beaten back thoroughly by Taliban, and I haven't seen the real face of Taliban, now all these clerics who were not God-fearing, they were not God-conscious, did not hear the voice of a man from God. Now, out of fear of America, everybody says, no, jihad is offensive. We are not this. We are not. Go to America, come to this country, go to everywhere. All this set of ulama are now harping on the same tune which Hazrat Masih Maud al-Islam had given them 100 years ago. Had they heeded the voice of Hazrat Masih Maud al-Islam, this thing would not have happened. This is my comment on this.
Thank you very much. The Attorney General kept on implying that the real Islamic jihad means rebellion against any non-Muslim ruler. We will take the opinion of Dr. Sultan Ahmed Sahib, a historian from Pakistan, who takes considerable interest in 1974 proceedings. Mr. Ahmed, usually we see movements against Ahmadis are based on hate campaigns. We see even today, and we've seen for years and years. Was such tactics used during those special proceedings as well?
Yes, such tactics were of course used. Once they had decided and they were embarking upon this path that they are not going to start question on the relevant subject that was decided for this special committee, then what they were left with? They were left with to present some wrong references, some fake references, and to incite hatred against Ahmadis in the hearts of the members of the special committee. And they used the usual stuff for that matter. We know that we are talking about 74, and just 3 years back, Pakistan suffered the tragedy of fall of Dhaka, and half of the country was separated. And they said, okay, presented some article from some journal. Of course, it was a false accusation that it was due to Ahmadis. And if British had captured subcontinent even before even the Ahmadiyya Jamaat was founded, they claimed that founder of Ahmadiyya movement was praising and supporting the British government, the colonial government, as if saying that it was just due to this sport that British got hold of captured subcontinent. And if they knew that people of Pakistan have got negative feelings against Israel, so they pointed out that you have got mission in Israel. So it was not only Ahmadis who are living in Israel, there are many Sunnis, many Shias, and people of every sect, those who are living in Israel, and some of them non-Ahmadi Muslims are even the office holders in the Parliament of Israel and in the government of Israel, and some of them are even serving in the army of Israel. So these were irrelevant questions. The main purpose was that to incite hatred and to keep the discussion on the wrong tracks. Similarly, in 1947, at the time of independence, almost every member must have known, or even I think most of them must have known, that District Gurdaspur, despite being a Muslim majority district, was handed over to India in the Radcliffe Monterey Award of Punjab. So he immediately made the allegation, it was also due to Ahmadis that it was awarded to India. So these tactics from one ground to other, they were trying to incite hatred against Ahmadis. Every Muslim respect prophets of God, like Hazrat Isa alayhi salam, Jesus Christ. So they were quick to point out that God forbids. Of course, these were false accusations. Founder of Ahmadiyya movement, Hazrat Mirza Ghulam Ahmad alayhi salam, has insulted Jesus Christ. And they were quick to point out by presenting some incomplete references, distorted text of the references that God forbids a founder of Ahmadiyya movement have insulted Hazrat Hussain, Raziyallahu Ta'ala Anhu. Because every Muslim has got a love of Hazrat Hussain, Raziyallahu Ta'ala Anhu, in his heart. So these were the tactics that were being used repeatedly, day after day, And the main strategy was that keep the discussion on these tracks and avoid discussion on the real subject matter.
Thanks very much. What's your take on that, Mr. Rahman?
Very interesting, very interesting. Now that I'm sitting here in UK, I am reminded of two great personalities in UK during the last Great War. The war which was carried out and the slogans and the language that was used. I think it was Huxley who wrote an article about words and behavior. He said the emotions of the people are connected with certain words. You utter the words and at once evoke the feelings of hatred or love. You say mother and it is all love. You say enemy and it is all hatred. As Shakespeare had said in that Julius Caesar, Cinna, Lord Cinna was to be killed. And they would say, no, he is not Lord Cinna, he is Cinna the poet. So the crowd said, so kill him for his bad verses. So they were trying to kill Ahmadis, according to say, for whatever they were trying to incite hatred upon. This is the interesting part of it. I mean, just connect them with some malignant idea and then condemn them. Kill the dog, give the dog a bad name and kill him. So that is what they have been trying all along.
Thanks. So now we examine the latter part of the proceedings where the members of the parliament made long speeches in the absence of the Ahmadiyya delegation, but were they ever cross-examined? Did the delegation from the Ahmadi Muslim community get a chance at all to refute the claims and allegations made by these anti-Ahmadiyya members of the parliament? The answer obviously is no. Again, we go back to Dr. Mirza Sultan Ahmed. Mr. Ahmed, when the cross-examination was finished, a number of other anti-Ahmadiyya parliamentarians made lengthy speeches, as I just said a few moments back. In particular, the opposition leader, Mufti Mahmood, we know, made a very long speech, a very wordy speech, in the absence of the Ahmadiyya delegation. That was like a memorandum in its own right, one may say, by the anti-Ahmadiyya element. So, on the other hand, the memorandum by the Ahmadis was not accepted or was not part of the published proceedings. Why was Mufti Mahmood's speech in particular and other anti-Ahmadi members of parliament, those speeches were allowed to be at that particular juncture?
Actually, what happened was that memorandum presented by Jamaat-e-Ahmadiyya was read for 2 days. Then there was a gap. Then, I don't know why the gap was so long. Probably they were not thinking how to counter these arguments. Then the cross-examination started. It got prolonged and went on and on for many days. All the allegations made by the Attorney General and his team were proven to be wrong. We have repeatedly proved that wrong references, fake references were presented. So now they were in trouble. What to do now? Memorandum of Jamaat-e-Ahmadiyya has been read and those cross-examination has been read and it was a disaster for them. Because now they saw that there was a problem. Whenever a fake reference is presented or incomplete text of a reference is read or a wrong and false accusation is made, the members of Jamaat-e-Ahmadiyya delegation were present there and they were quick to point out that this is wrong. And the truth was revealed. They had to cut a sorry figure. Now what they did, that Jamaat's delegation was out and in-camera proceedings were going on. And now they had to start all over again and make those accusations again to build up a false case. So these speeches, in particular speech by the leader of opposition, Maulvi Mufti Mahmood, was done for that purpose. And now as far as the points of Mufti Mahmood's speech is concerned, they were almost the same. They were the replay of the cross-examination, with one difference that Jamaat's delegation was not present there to point out their mistakes and point out that there's false accusations are being made. But probably in an effort to compensate for the flaw that proceedings are going on irrelevant line, subject matter was not being discussed, he made a very strange claim in the beginning of that speech, and that was that scores of Quranic verses support our opinion, our point of view about Khatm-e-Nubuwwat, that is the finality of the prophethood. He made this tall claim. Everybody knows the Jamaat-e-Ahmadiyya believes that every verse of Quran is true. Not a single word of Quran can be negated. He made this tall claim, but it's amazing. He didn't read one verse one verse of the Holy Qur'an to support his point of view. So that is one strange thing. That was the beginning with a tall claim, then it quickly changed subject and moved on to irrelevant accusations again. And other members who made their speeches against Jamaat-e-Ahmadiyya, they were on the similar lines, and that went on for many days.
Thanks very much. I know Mr. Rahman wants to say something here.
You see, what Mufti Mahmood did, it was not a speech. He was reading out a book,
Yes.
printed book, which is not permissible under the rules. Mirza Sultan Ahmad said he did not want to be a witness for fear of being cross-examined. So if he was not a witness, he was speaking as a member in a parliamentary debate. A member is not supposed to read even a piece of paper. He was reading a complete book printed earlier, compiled by 4 people.
Thanks very much. So again, Dr. Ahmed, at the end of the proceedings, we know Attorney General tried to even wind up the discussion in his own way. What were the main points of his speech, Attorney General's speech?
The same thing again, like Mr. Mufti Mahmood's speech, leaving aside the initial part, which I'll discuss right now. There was nothing new. The same allegations, almost with the same references, were repeated again. Of course, as I've mentioned before, with the only difference that Jamaat's delegation was not sitting there to answer these allegations this time when Mr. Attorney General was making his last speech. And it was a long speech, went on for more than 1 day. But the initial part, the very beginning of this speech in which he was winding up the debate, is very interesting and amazing. He almost proved that all these proceedings were wrong and were baseless, that were going on for so many days, and he was one of the main key players of these proceedings. Now, we know that this special committee was formed to discuss basically 2 resolutions. One was from the government of Pakistan at that time, PPP-led government, and other was from the opposition, initially signed by more than 20 members of the opposition, including Mr. Mufti Mahmood, Mr. Noorani, and others. What he said is very interesting, and I'll read his exact words. He mentioned that both resolutions were technically wrong. He said, I am just quoting part of his statements. It was a long statement. While discussing the resolution that was moved by government, he said, to discuss the question of status in Islam, if the House is of view that people who do not believe in the finality of prophethood of Hazrat Muhammad, peace be upon him, are not Muslim, then they have no status in Islam. So what were you discussing? They have nothing to do with Islam. The motion, that is I used the word resolution, the motion that is by the government is a contradiction in terms. So what we are left with? We are left with the resolution that was presented by the opposition, signed by their members. About that resolution, he said, I'll read his statement partly. Again, sir, with all respect, the resolution moved by 37 members is, in my opinion, in some parts contradictory. So, government's motion is contradictory, opposition's resolution is contradictory. So, what were you doing for so many days? The very basis of these proceedings were wrong. Then after mentioning some other points, he said that mentioning the motion of resolution of the opposition, then it further said, the resolution of the opposition said, that the followers of whatever name they are called are indulging in subversive activity internally and externally. These are the words of the resolution of the opposition members. He pointed out, for once at least, he pointed out a very relevant point here, which has got very interesting historical repercussions. He said, after mentioning that you are saying that they are indulging in subversive activities against Islam, on the one hand you say, declare them a minority, declare them a separate entity, and once you declare them as such, then you have to protect their rights. He was touching a raw nerve. He was touching a sore point there in the assembly. Then he said, there is no alternative, and this is a very good part of this resolution. I appreciate it. I commend it. When they say that their legitimate rights and interests should be protected, but what are those rights? On the one hand, they say that they are a subversive movement. Their opposition is saying that Ahmadis are carrying on subversive activity. They are subversive movement. They indulge in subversion inside and outside. Then he mentioned that once you declare them a minority, at one point you are saying they are subversive movement. That if you declare a section of population as a separate religious community, then not only the constitution, but even your religion enjoins upon you to respect their rights to profess and practice and their religion and to propagate it. So that is the truth that he was denying on the very first day of the proceedings, that Parliament has got a right to put restriction on the rights, basic human rights. He himself admit that once you declare them their minority, you'll have to protect their rights, and they'll have to got the right to practice, profess, and even propagate their religion. But sadly, ultimate end was that in 1984, this right was also snatched away from the Ahmadis.
Article 20 was actually destroyed there and then. Mr. Rahman, we've discussed about this. We've heard in detail. There was discussions going on. There was basically cross-examination at length, then the speeches, long speeches made by the anti-Ahmadiyya elements. One would have thought there must have been debate after that. Was there debate?
Well, there was a sort of debate because there could be nothing else. And Dr. Sultan has just now pointed out to what he has called, and I would call it the same, the winding up speech of Yahya Bakhtiar. There could be no winding up speech. Yahya Bakhtiar was not a member of the House. He was an outsider. He had a right of audience. He was an Attorney General, and he was given a specific task that the questions of the ulama should be routed through him. That's all. Thereafter, the assembly, the members, the committee had to deliberate, debate, reach a conclusion. Who was he to give a winding up?
He was not a member of Parliament.
There was no winding up. If there was to be a winding up, then Ahmadis had a right to come and say, now this is the result of what. And it is, I think, God sent. It was by providence that Yahya Bakhtiar came there. The whole proceeding was wrong. His address was wrong, but he was brought by providence there to admit that both the motion and the resolution were an absolute nullity. So, in the end, they admitted what Mirza Nasir Ahmad Saab has said in the beginning. That is one thing. Then, why was this all happening? I do not have the proceeding before me right now, but if our audience were to refer to the proceedings of 29th August 1974, and I am referring to volume 14, page 1862 to 1868. Now, if you read these proceedings, you will see that one of the members, Malak Akhtar, was saying, sir, are we going to take up the resolution and the motion together? Are we going to first discuss the resolution, motion, and then the resolution? What is the procedure? And then some people said, sir, how are we going to make our speeches? Are we going to be making speeches as witnesses? Mufti Mahmood and Ghulam Ghaus Hazarvi and everybody said, no, we won't take oath. And from the chair, Sahibzada Farooq Ali Khan, your namesake, Sahibzada Farooq Ali Khan said, if you appear as a witness, you will have to take oath, and you will be cross-examined. No, we don't want to be witness. Mirza Nasir Ahmad was called. He was to make a statement. He read out his statement, and you say he should be cross-examined. Therefore, he has to be given oath. We have no cable with that. So if they wanted to say something, and as I said, they did not have anything to say. They just read out a book. So one thing, they were not very clear about the procedures. Then on 29th also, something, on the 2nd September, something very interesting happened. Now this is debate going on. Now it is the legitimate right of the members to speak out. Yep. And what was the atmosphere of the House? Sardar Inayatur Rahman Abbasi, an MNA from Rawalpindi. He said, sir, I wish on that particular day Mufti Mahmood was absent. He said, sir, I wish Mufti Mahmood were here. I would confront him and say, our heads are hang in shame. What Mirza Nasir Ahmad said, you should have confronted him. You owe us to a reply to Mirza Nasir Ahmad, what he has said. And then Colonel Habib, again an MNA from Rawalpindi, he stood up and said, sir, what he is saying is very relevant, it's very cogent, it's very solid. We are answerable to our future generation. Our future generation are going to ask, this is what happened, what did you do?
So there were some reasonable people there.
So there were people, many people, they felt, even Yahya Bakhtiar, he has ultimately conceded that the whole thing is a farce. Members are feeling that the whole thing is a farce. In the very beginning, Mufti Mahmood had gone out in the press and say, I lost my sleeps of the night when Mirza Nasir Ahmad appeared in the assembly. I mean, those kinds, I'm not going into those details. So the debate took place, but the debate, after the debate, and mind you, before the proceedings started, there were about 400 odd representations saying that the Ahmadis should not be declared non-Muslim, or words to that effect. So in that process, there had to be a vote, but there was no vote. And nobody... something came from above. So no meaningful debate, only putting in the hatred so that what they are going to do can be justified, if on no other ground, at least kill him for his bad verses.
You are a good lawyer and also a student of theology. How would you comment, very, very briefly of course, about the performance of the Attorney General and his allies in the Parliament with regards to their legal performance as well as their theological debate?
You see, in one sentence I would say, Attorney General had conducted a thorough grilling cross-examination of Hazrat Mirza Nasir Ahmad Sahib on the constitutional objection. He made 6 hours long speech. He should at least have said the objection of Mirza Nasir Ahmad Sahib is not valid for this constitutional reason, for this decision of the Pakistan Supreme Court, for this decision of the Indian Supreme Court, for this philosopher or this writer or this jurist has said this. No. He said nothing on the constitutional side. He only kept on harping on the hate material. Then, on the religious side, ulama were supposed to give a definition of the Muslim, and on I think 29 September it was, Maulana Abdul Hakim stood up.
August, you mean?
August. He stood up for making a speech. He said, we don't need to give a definition. So the ulama, the religious group, religious parties failed to perform their duty, and Attorney General failed to perform his duty. Complete blank.
It's going towards the end of the proceedings, and of course then finally the objective was to amend the Constitution, Article 106 and 260, clauses 3 in both. How did the final wording come about? What happened?
See, there were two stages. The special committee could not draft a bill. They could only make a recommendation. So they adopted a resolution saying that it is hereby resolved that all those who do not believe in the finality, etc., should be declared as non-Muslim, and Constitution be amended for that purpose. Now that was the resolution of the Assembly. That resolution was not agreed upon till the 7th of September. At 3 o'clock or sometime, something came from above, and that resolution was without discussion, or without much discussion. There was some discussion, no doubt. Some people wanted to move some amendments, but then it was adopted. Now after that, it had got to after 3:30 the proceedings ended, and I think at 4:30 the committee converted itself into National Assembly. And in that National Assembly, it was given a practical shape that the Constitution be amended, Article 263, in Article 260, sub-Article 3 be added, doing this as the amendment has now been incorporated. Now, once that constitutional amendment bill was tabled and moved, it was a constitutional amendment on which, as I said, more than 400 representation had been received, and many others, of course, on the opposite side. So more than 1,000 representation had been received on both sides. And it was after that I have here the rules of business of the Parliament. When it is moved, then it has to be published in the official gazette. It was not, could not be, because in the same day, within 2 hours, the whole thing was gone. It had to be published in official gazette. Then it had to be sent to the committee on the subject. The committee had to report back. It was never sent to a committee. When the committee report comes back, then the mover of the bill had to say that it should be either go for eliciting public opinion or whatever, it should be taken up.
2 days rule as well in that?
And then at least 2 clear days notice in a session shall intervene between the day of supply of copies to the bill to the members and the day for setting down the bill for a motion under Rule 2. So before even it was discussed, they had to give 2 clear days notice. All these rules were waived.
Nothing happened.
The rules were waived. They could waive it. The rules were waived.
Can they be waived
So
normally?
they can be waived technically.
Right.
But they can be waived on very minor issues. You are amending a constitution and you have 1,000 representations on your table from different sections of the society. You have not sent it for eliciting public opinion, but you have the public opinion with you. Why not have a discussion over it? So that procedural aspect was also ignored. So I know that for any lacuna in the procedures, the amendment cannot be annulled. But it is unholy haste. Within 1 hour in the National Assembly, then in the Senate, it was passed.
Mr. Rahman, I'm slightly concerned with the wording of 263, where it says that anybody actually believes in a prophet of any sort coming or any religious reformer coming after the Holy Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, then he should be non-Muslim. Yeah. Does it have any wider implications rather than just the Ahmadis being the target in the end?
First of all, Farooq, let us see the basic implication. The basic implication is that the Ahmadiyya viewpoint has prevailed. Neither the motion nor the resolution said anything about unqualified and absolute finality. Motion said what is the state of the person who do not believe in finality. And the resolution did not mention it at all. They said they are subversive activity. So what was not there, after hearing the cross-examination, they thoroughly understood that we believe in the finality, but there is a qualification, which qualification is imposed by, not by us. That qualification imposed by the Holy Prophet Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam himself, who said that Jesus Christ will return or Imam Mahdi will come or whatever. So the very definition, any person who does not believe in absolute and unqualified finality. Why those 2 riders? Why not say who does not believe in the finality? Because they knew we believe in the finality. So here actually they failed and we succeeded. They did harm to us and ultimately declared us non-Muslim because we were declared on. But they conceded that we believe the finality, but in a particular limited sense, and that sense which was given by the Holy Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. So the basic implication is that they have conceded that we believe in the finality, but that according to them, if it is not absolute and fine, then it is a non-Muslim. But then they are caught in himself,
yes,
because they believe in the reappearance of Jesus
physically.
So now all these all sects who believe in the reappearance of, and today even on the pulpit they say, "Abhi Isa alayhi salam aayenge to sara hamari taqat aa jayegi."
So will he not be a prophet or not even a reformer?
Even if you believe him to be a reformer, you will be outside the pale of you will be a non-Muslim. I mean, if Imam Mahdi comes and you say, all right, he is not a prophet, he is a reformer.
So clearly it's good for Pakistani people not to wait for anyone to come, otherwise all become non-Muslims.
Not only they, but who comes will be a non-Muslim.
Right, and the followers with him. Interesting, thank you very much. The Attorney General and the parliamentarians were providing plenty of wrong references we've discussed before. They were wasting time over non-issues. Irrelevant discussion was part of their strategy apparently. Hurling abuse, telling blatant lies and outright slander were almost norms in that house. On the other side, there was one man standing tall with complete conviction that there is only one God and only His decree has the jurisdiction to make the final decision about one's faith. It would be impossible to pay tribute to the true defender of the faith, Hazrat Mirza Nasir Ahmed, whose every reply was comprehensive and will always remain as a permanent sign of victory, of truth over the lawmakers of this material world.
At the annual gathering of 1956, Hazrat Khalifa al-Masih II said, "Whenever the election of the next Khalifa takes place, and whoever is duly elected, I wish to give him the glad tidings that God shall favour him with his support, and whosoever stands in opposition to him, whether a great man or small, shall face humiliation and ignominy, and is bound to suffer ruin and disgrace, because the next Khalifa shall indeed walk in the footsteps of the promised Messiah, and shall uphold and establish the institution of the Islamic Khilafat. Therefore I give glad tidings now to him who will be elected the third successor in my place, that even if the governments of the world oppose him, these shall be shattered into pieces.
खुदा के पाक लोगों को खुदा से नुसरत आती है.
In fact, we have our annual Majlis Shura in the month of March. The annual Majlis Shura of 1973 had taken place. It was over. In May 1973, Hazrat Khalifatul Masih Salis Rahimahullah Ta'ala called an emergency Shura. This Shura was held in camera. No non-member was allowed even to enter the premises of Ahmadi Mahmud. In this Shura, Huzur addressed the members for almost 4 hours, and he warned the Jamaat that some conspiracies were in the making. The Jamaat should be careful, watchful, should not provide any occasion to the opponents and to the enemies which they can utilize against the Jamaat as a pretext to start some sort of trouble.
On the 29th of May, when that incident at the railway station took place, sometime in the evening, the present Hazrat Khalifatul Masih, he came to our house and he said that his father, that is Sahibzada Mirza Mansoor Ahmad Sahib Nazir Allah at that time, he had asked myself and my younger brother, Mirza Ghulam Ahmad, to come to him. It was, of course, a time of great trouble. Every moment, every hour, we were receiving news of what was happening to Ahmadis at this place or at that place, or how many were being killed, how houses were being looted, people were turned out of their houses. These reports were always pouring in day and night. And of course, this was very troublesome and very difficult to bear. But it was the company, the presence of Hazrat Khalifatul Masih Salis which buoyed us and which kept our spirits high in spite of all what was happening.
When Huzur was asked to appear before the National Assembly and answer the questions, Huzur said, I do not know what they are going to ask. They have not provided me a list of questions. I can't make any preparation.
ये हज़रत साहब ने हमें फरमाया, वहाँ भी इस्लामाबाद में भी जब खानों के वक्त में या वैसे जब कभी मुलाकात होती थी तो ये था कि जी मुझे बताते हैं, अल्लाह ताला गाइडेड रहनुमाई की जाती है कि इसका जवाब आज देना है या नहीं, और या किस रंग में देना है, क्या तरीके के जवाब में इख्तियार करना है। ये तो बड़ी वाज़े तौर पे साहब ने कई दफ़ा बात की थी.
Anyone who goes through the proceedings of the assembly can understand clearly how Allah helped him. And without previously knowing what the question was to put, he gave very satisfactory answers. The answers were so much satisfactory that some of the members of the assembly said that the questions are previously leaked, and Mirza Sahib knows the questions and comes prepared.
Whatever was being asked, although it was asked extempore, as if the delegation had memorized everything, and the questions were in a very devious way to trap the delegation, to trap particularly Hazur in giving a sort of a wrong answer, or an answer which was detrimental to our cause. But that, by the grace of God, by the grace of Allah, never happened.
So he prayed extensively to Allah, and Allah comforted him by saying, "Wasse makanaka inna kafainaka al-mustahzi'in."
Wasse makanak. See, it was a promise that although on the face of it, these times are very difficult, and what is happening is very troublesome, but all these troubles and difficulties are transitory, and in the end it would be better for Jamaat. There would you would need more accommodation for your guests and for the Ahmadis who come to Rafah.
We are sufficient for you. Don't worry. You simply extend your accommodations. So Allah comforted him that this is a mockery and we will look after it.
Whenever Hazrat Sahib came back from the assembly and the members of the delegation discussed what happened there, it was very satisfying to see that they were completely satisfied, they were completely at peace and happy at what had happened there and how they had responded to that.
He said, हमारा अपने खुदा से किसी निशान का मुतालबा नहीं, चाहे कोई निशान दिखाए या ना दिखाए. We don't demand any sign from our Allah. It is up to him whether he shows some sign or does not show some sign. So he had completely left everything to Allah.
He was a kind, a benevolent, a very considerate, and a cheerful and a cheering person. A person who was always happy and made others happy too. You remember he advised the members of the community that whatever the circumstances may be, they should always keep on smiling. And this cheerfulness was based on his belief in the mercy of Allah.
On the occasion of the 1974 Jalsa Salana, during his speech, he asked the foreigner guests who had come as delegates to the Jalsa to please stand up. When they stood up, he said, you can wipe out the Jamaat from Pakistan, but you cannot wipe out the Jamaat from these countries.
There was not a moment of, what should I say, disappointment or anxiety or desolation, that sort of thing.
One non-Ahmadi said that during these disturbances it has been proved that the leadership of Jamaat Ahmadiyya is much stronger than the other leadership. The man said in Punjabi, another peer pala nikle.
Always smiling, as he had asked us to be always smiling. Whatever the situation.
खुदा के पाक लोगों को खुदा से نصرت آتی ہے. خدا کے پاک لوگوں کو خدا سے نصرت آتی ہے.